back to when you were a police officer and out on the street, and because I'm very interested in this, is you're running scenarios all day and you're on all day.
Yeah.
How in the world did you decompress in a healthy manner?
Yeah.
Because I see it a lot of times where, I mean, you guys just see some nasty things.
Yeah.
How do you decompress? Is it talking to people? Is it just zoning out? I mean, how do you do that?
Hey, so when I was coming up and some of my bosses coming up, we didn't do a good job of that, Mike, at all. We weren't healthy. We have seen some ugly things. I saw something very ugly in Brentwood in 2004 that I think if I would have seen that day, that I would have chosen another profession, to be quite honest with you. However, we're doing a better job now. Our suicide rates are still way up. In fact, they're increasing, which I'm trying to figure out why is that happening. When I came on, our peer support was increased. Chief Evenson had been working on getting a police psychologist on the books, so our officers can call her, and she's wonderful. So we have that in place right now. I worry about my officers. I didn't do a good job of doing it, so I didn't exercise like I should have. I'd go home, and you isolate yourself a lot. I'm luckily, I saw that. I mountain bike now. I run. Sometimes mountain bike. My knees are getting a little old, but and then I spend time with my family. But no, it's a real concern, Mike, and I'm glad you bring that up because mental health in our profession really needs to be dealt with. It's I'm going to tell you a little story. Back in the day, 3 of my police officers went to a car that was fully engulfed in flames and had some people inside screaming and yelling, and they heard them scream and yell till their fire extinguishers were out. And we didn't do anything for those officers. Okay, that's not normal, Mike. And none of those officers work for my agency now. And I looked back and I said, no, this is it. I tell my officers, you come in, you call me 24/7, you got something going on, you let me know, because there's some great programs out there that are just for police officers, firefighters, and first responders that can really deal with the nightmares that we have at the end of our career. And it's important. I've reached out. I'm not afraid to tell you I've reached out for help. I've gotten some wonderful help. And I invite my officers. A lot of times we as leaders, we don't want to do that because it's work, right? Sure. Our officers come in, you start getting, it triggers a bunch of stuff. I don't care. It'll trigger as much stuff and as much work. And I want them. I tell every one of my new officers, I expect a ton from you. And you can expect a ton from me in return. So if you need help, my phone's on 24/7. You call me. So thank you, Mike, for bringing that up.
How hard is it to ask for help? Because it's not even like just a police thing, but anybody. I mean, it's that first step. Asking for help is hard.
Yeah, and so
how did you get over that?
Yeah, so I got over it because I couldn't sleep and I was having nightmares and I was isolating myself, and I was not being very edgy and it's not fair to your loved ones that are around you at all. And I tell my officers that they didn't sign up for this job, you did. So please, when you go home, I want you to be cognizant of that and treat the people you love. Don't bring that stuff home. You bring it in my office or your sergeant's office. I just hope that we can do a better job of helping our officers. I forgot what was the question, Mike?
Just how did you get over it?
Yeah.
How did you determine to?
Yeah.
Ask
well, I knew what I was dealing with. Wasn't right. I saw some pretty bad things, and I did it on my own. I wanted to get better, and it was great. And I wanted to show my officers too that, hey, man, this profession, we're supposed to be so strong and so this and that, and not show emotion. And you know what, Mike, you do that. That's why we die so early. After retirement, you hear all that. I think the average age is 6 years after. I want my officers to have a good long career and then have a great retirement. So I think by me just talking about this with you, Mike, lets my officers and hopefully other officers know, I don't care what department you work for, you need any help, you give me a call. I know the challenges you face. I want you to be a good father. I don't want this job to ruin your life.
There's a lot of good men and women too.
There is.
They're good people.
I think they're the best people I've ever met in my support staff, officers. Law enforcement community is made up of wonderful people.
Yeah, I knew for me it was when I first started doing a lot of the reporting on scene. It was very hard in the beginning to see some of those bodies, and I didn't really know, number one, how to talk to people and how to go about it. And over the years you learn. But I think for me, one of the best things I started doing was actually not focusing on the incident itself, but focusing on the officers or the firefighters on the scene
Mm-hmm.
versus the victim and all that. And that's kind of how I shoot stuff now, is I focus on the personnel, not the actual, travesty.
Yeah, that's
But
good.
but what I do to relieve that stress, I actually just go to the golf range and hit the balls as hard as I can, get it out of me, and you move on to the next thing.
That's great. That's a great release. But yeah, no, we tell them, my old bosses, when I was growing up in this profession in the late '80s, a lot of my bosses were Vietnam veterans, and no fault of their own. I love them, but the way we dealt with things was, hey, go get a 12-pack of beer, the alcohol thing. And what I'm happy to announce is, I think my officers, I see them running a lot. I see them playing golf. There's a whole crew that play golf. Those healthy outlets that you were talking about. I hope this young generation doesn't turn to some of the things that traditionally we engaged in to cope with that kind of stress. But yeah, those images and those pictures, Mike, you've been out to the scenes. They'll never go away.
Yeah.
But we can handle. The only thing is, it's the collateral damage that we do to others. We signed up for this job.
Yeah.
We know what we get into. I've always felt that way. I don't blame anybody. I signed up. I'm the one here, and I'm going to go take care of that problem.
And I hope that through the photos, it prevents other people from that kind of, whether it's a car accident or a fire, just be a little safer.
Absolutely.
That's what I hope.
Absolutely. And a lot of times after the smoke clears, Mike, it's the families that we're dealing with later that are really the true victims sometimes of these catastrophes.
Yeah.
Or it just destroys lives.
So, having said all that, and given the national rhetoric right now, what's kind of the advice you give to new officers or people thinking about becoming a police officer?
Yeah, that's tough. It's different, Mike. I feel, hey, there's new laws and whatnot that are being enacted. And I'm all for transparency. And
I think the new laws are stupid, but
well,
me. That's my opinion. You can't say that.
It is what it is. And hey, here's the thing: we can all do a better job. I mean, if it's training issues and whatnot, let's get to the table and discuss this. But I worry about my officers. They go out, they do the best job. But like you said earlier, I believe my officers wake up every morning, they want to do best for our community. And if they make a mistake, we make mistakes, and I just see things going around where I just.
But I mean, for someone that's thinking about being an officer, what's kind of the one thing you would encourage them to think about?
You want me to be honest with you, Mike?
Always.
I just this is a great profession, but I'm worried about the profession. I'm really, truly worried about the profession and where it's going. I feel that good people, if things happen in the future, I just think good people are going to say, why would I put myself in this profession? That worries me, because it's a profession I love. It's a profession I've done for 32 years. I've woken up for more than half my life and suited up in this uniform, and I've done great things for all the communities that I've worked for. My officers do great things. I worry about, Mike, for the first time, I walk in and talk to a group of officers, and they're talking about retiring at the age of 50, the day they turn 50. That was never talked about when I was coming up. But the pressures they're feeling out there is real. It's real, and that's sad when I have officers who have 10 years left saying they're 40 years old, at 50 I'm retiring.
I hear it all the time.
I never thought about it, Mike. And that scares me, because what happens is, when we start to not get good people, we lower our standards. And then what happens? We start getting people that
Well, you can't hire anybody because you don't want to lower your standards.
But if that's the case, no, you're right. I don't want to hire my standards. I won't hire my standards. I won't lower my standards. I won't do it, Mike. I will leave this profession before I do that.
So this kind of transition to the next question I wanted to make was, or wanted to ask was, if you weren't a police officer, what would you be doing, and
That's a
what do
great
you plan on
question.
doing after you retire?
That's a great question. Well, I have a young daughter, and I plan on trying to make some time up with her and my wife. My wife's put up with me for almost 25 years, so I plan on spending time with my family. I plan on golfing. That's a big thing I want to do. And I teach part-time at a local community college, and I really enjoy that. I really do. I just see these young minds, and I hear this new generation coming up. I hear everybody criticize them. They're a great generation. They're a great group of people, and I walk in these classrooms and I talk to these young people, and we're going to be all right, Mike. We're going to be all right. So I plan on doing that.
That's good.